friends, Americans, followers, listeners, readers, whatever you want to call yourselves, get out the hip waders, because the bovine excrement has hit the flood stage. It's overtopping the levees. It is pouring into the streets. It is just, I've never seen it this bad here. Obviously, the big story today that is being waved around to try and fan up, oh, yes, we've got to go after Iran. There was an explosion down in Bangkok, Thailand, where this guy that's being identified as an Iranian national because of a conveniently located passport blew up. And he wounded 4 civilians, and the Thai police, who are perhaps more corrupt except for Rampart Division, are immediately saying, oh yes, he was Iranian and he was targeting Israelis, even though he did his most damage to himself. And everyone said, how do you know the guy is Iranian? And, you know, were the legs tattooed? I'm an Iranian suicide bomber. Please mail pieces back to Tehran. I don't think so. We had more magic passports. And there we go. Fix the noise there. We had more magic passports. I'll tell you what my theory is. I think it's a patsy, and I think he was set up. I think he was just a delivery man. Somebody gave him a box and said, we'll pay you 5,000 baht to deliver this box. Cookies. Yes, that's it. These are cookies. These are chocolate cookies. It's Valentine's Day in America. You're going to take these chocolate cookies over to my grandmother's house. That's right, my grandmother's house. And I'll pay you after you get back. Because they're saying he was carrying grenades and they went off. Now, grenades are like bullets. It's a very old, mature technology. They don't go off by themselves. There has to be a detonator. And so I think what happened is this guy got set up. He was carrying a package, and he had no idea what's in there. And the reason I say that, if you go around to all the websites that are carrying this story and saying, oh, yes, gosh darn those dastardly Iranians, you know, the megaphonies are already in there saying, boy, what a goofball he was, blowing himself up. Ha, 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 ha. No, the most obvious conclusion is he didn't know he was carrying a bomb. That's what makes the most logical sense here. And so it's another setup. It's another false flag by Israel. And Israel's out there screaming, Iran is behind all of these bombings. Nobody can really know. Remember back on 9/11 when Israel was screaming, yes, it's Osama bin Laden, it's the Muslims, it's whatever. Nobody could possibly know. You've had a bomb blast, you've got bodily parts all over the place, you've got a suspicious passport, and that's it. Over in India, where they had the car bombing, the authorities there are saying it's too soon to say. There's no actual evidence saying who did it. But over in Thailand, which is not exactly known for the honesty of the governmental authorities over there, smoke had hardly cleared, and they're saying, oh yes, it's Iran, they're targeting Israelis. I don't believe this one. We've seen too many of these false flags. I absolutely don't believe it. And again, behind all of this stuff is the question, does it make any sense at all? Of the 3 nations, Iran, Israel, and the United States, what's the one nation that's trying very hard to avoid a war? Iran. So why would they bomb anybody or anything? Whereas Israel has a long history of bombing targets and planting information to frame a third party. Lavon affair being one of the most well-known cases of that. So go out there, Google the Lavon affair, Google USS Liberty, Google 9/11 dancing Israelis, and then ask yourself why Iran, which is the only nation trying to avoid a war, would carry out the very kind of attacks Israel and the U.S. have to have happen to justify an attack. Fool me once, so forth and so on. Now, as I said, over in India, the authorities are saying it's too early to name any country. In the embassy car blast, there's no information. All they know is the explosive device used was a very, very sophisticated type, which says Mossad. This gag about motorcycle, magnetic limpet bomb, boom. Same exact thing they were doing up in Iran. And the U.S. has said that was Israel assassinating people in Iran. And so now Israel's running around blowing up stuff to say, oh, we're the victims, please. We're the victims. You've got to side with us. You have to send your children to go kill those nasty Iranians. Man, they can't come up with anything new. Another one they've got out there, a defector. How wonderfully convenient. We've got a defector now from Syria saying that Assad is using nerve gas on his people that he got from the Russians. They told us the same thing about Saddam Hussein. They told us the same thing about Gaddafi. Oh, he's doing all these terrible things. And then you get in there, and it turns out not to be true. So, fool me once, to quote George W. Bush. Meanwhile, do you remember not too long ago when they were telling you the war in Iraq was over? Obama got up there and said, the war in Iraq is over. We're bringing our kids home. Actually, we're sending them over to Iran and Afghanistan. But they said the war in Iraq was over. And you believed it. You fell for it, you fools. Basically, the Pentagon has come out and said they need $3 billion for the war in Iraq that isn't supposed to be happening any longer. So, yeah, that's what's going on there. Meanwhile, back over in India, despite all the talk about sanctions and financial penalties and everything, India is moving closer and closer to Iran, commercially, financially. And, India obviously doesn't buy this Israeli embassy car bomb. We've all seen Israel play the same game too many times. Nobody's going to fall for it anymore. Meanwhile, did you hear on the news where they're talking about because of Iran's nuclear program, the U.S. wants to kick them out of this international oil clearinghouse, which would be financially crippling to Iran until all these other countries decide they'd rather do business with Iran than with this international clearinghouse anyway. And again, there is no evidence Iran is doing anything other than building nuclear power stations, medical isotopes, and industrial applications for nuclear technology, all of which they're allowed to do under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, signed by Iran and signed by the United States of America. And this is where it gets really dicey. As we start going into a world war situation, the United States is going to go out and start making all kinds of promises to all kinds of countries around the world. We promise we will do this, and we promise we will do that. And yet, every country on earth is watching as the United States government completely abandons the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, breaks its promises, violates the treaty agreement with regard to Iran just to please Israel. And so we're basically in a situation that the United States could have a treaty agreement with Great Britain, and Israel says you got to break it, and the U.S. government says, oh, I'm sorry, I got to break it. The United States could have a treaty agreement with Japan, and Israel says, no, you got to break that one. And the United States government says, I'm sorry, Japan, we got to break that one, because that's what's going on here. Under the terms of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the United States, which signed that agreement, acknowledges Iran's legal right to peaceful uses of nuclear technology, power stations, medical isotopes, industrial applications. Under Article 4, the United States is supposed to be in Iran, helping Iran build these peaceful facilities, which is a really good way to make sure there's no diversion of nuclear materials for weapons purposes. And by the way, the IAEA has confirmed again there's no diversion of nuclear materials to weapons purposes. The entire case for Iran as a threat to the rest of the world is based on the laptop of death, which was given to the United States by the MEK, which we now know, because of this assassination program inside Iran, they work for Mossad. And Israel was the source of most of the fraudulent documents used to sell the war in Iraq. So it's basically the same game all over again. So, aside from the laptop of death, which is completely unsubstantiated, the IAEA has not found any weapons diversion whatsoever. It's all innuendo and, oh, we can't let them have nuclear technology because they might do something bad with it. Well, why did you sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty then, if you thought they were going to do something bad? It's just Israel says, we want to be the only nuclear store in the Middle East and the world. And, they've already caught Israel trying to sell a nuclear weapon to South Africa, which is exactly the activity the Non-Proliferation Treaty is designed to prevent. Basically, all the Non-Proliferation Treaty does is guarantee a nuclear weapon market monopoly to Israel. They can sell bombs to all over the world. We know they tried to sell one to South Africa. We think they may have sold one to North Korea. But everybody else is forbidden from selling nuclear weapons so that Israel can charge as much money as they want for them. That's all it is. It's a market monopoly. It's got nothing to do with safety and threat from war and peace. It's profit. It's all about profit. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking about this campaign of false flag attacks that Israel is staging around the world to try and convince everybody that we've got to go in and kill the Iranians for them. And they seem to be escalating more and more because they're not getting traction. We have seen these false flags so many times before, all the way back to the 1950s, probably even before that. Fake radio transmitter in Tripoli to trick Reagan into bombing Gaddafi. The Lavon affair. Attack on the USS Liberty. Before the Liberty got the message out that Israel was attacking them, Israel was saying, oh, it's Egypt. Go bomb Egypt. You got to bomb Egypt. USS Cole. The reason Israel's our only friend in the Middle East is Israel goes out of its way to sabotage relations with every other country down there. British intelligence says Israel did the original hijacking that led to the raid on Entebbe in order to demonize the Palestinians so that the rest of the world would turn a blind eye while Israel steals other people's lands. So how far will Israel go with a false flag? Well, if we presume, because of the dancing Israelis who were arrested near the World Trade Towers on 9/11, that they're perfectly capable of knocking down major buildings and killing thousands of people, that could be in the offing. I'm going to take a guess here. For some reason, all of the corporate media are already renting rooftops all over Tel Aviv, supposedly for the coming war with Iran. And this is like a tailor-made situation with all the media already on the rooftops for Israel to fire a couple of missiles into Tel Aviv, into vacant lots, which is any time, a nudge Palestinian rocket flies over the fence and hits Israel. It's always a vacant lot. They never blow up anything important. But I would not be surprised if Israel fires a couple of rockets or bombs into Tel Aviv right where the media is so that they catch all the smoke and the fire. And Israel's government wouldn't mind sacrificing a few hundred Israelis, especially like the Ethiopians, to wave the bloody shirts around on TV because Israel wants this war and they want your children to fight for them. Israel doesn't fight their own wars. They get other countries, usually the United States, now Canada, apparently, to fight their wars for them. So the push for Iran is back on. All right, let's see. We got a caller on the line. We're going to go with Dee in Minnesota. Aloha, Dee. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. This business of all these supposed bombings that Iran supposedly carried out, it's all a load of pure bull.
Yes, it is.
I mean, this passport stuff, they're known for this. They're notorious for it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Mossad is, even the Haaretz today was saying Mossad is still using foreign passports to do their dirty deeds around the planet. They have this, permanent infrastructure acquiring foreign passports. They were caught stealing them down in New Zealand. There have been several There were several diplomatic stinks between Israel and both Great Britain and Canada over the use of Canadian and British passports by Mossad. Canada was very worried because so many Canadian passports were somehow winding up in the hands of Mossad agents that Canada's government was afraid of backlashes against Canadian citizens traveling around the world. That somebody that the Mossad had killed, their family would grab these Canadians and torture them to death, and then the Canadians would be saying, "What's all that about?" And they'd have no idea why they were being targeted. And Israel said, "We're sorry."
Bombs, Israel's well known for doing those too. These, magnetic bombs.
The magnetic bombs, yeah, that's something that they've been doing for a long time. The drive-by bicycle, stick on the magnetic bomb, 30 seconds later, bang. They're known for that.
Yep. And it's the Syria thing that's a load of pure bull too. Al Qaeda's the one causing all the trouble.
Yeah, and Israel and the United States are giving them the guns to do it. That's the amazing thing. And now NATO's saying we have to go in for humanitarian reasons. Those Syrians are killing each other. Well, they wouldn't be killing each other if Israel hadn't been sending in weapons last November and the U.S. wasn't shipping in weapons right now. I mean, that's the game. Give them weapons, let them start a civil war, and then invade and conquer the place under the pretext of saving those Syrians from themselves. Same crap they did in Libya.
I understand that Russia's not going to go along with that.
No, Russia. Yeah, that's why we're
over there.
That's why we're so concerned about this situation. Russia and China both understand that the United States is never going to stop grabbing more and more of the Middle East, and now it's a threat to Russia and China's strategic interests. And Russia and China have been sending very clear and unmistakable diplomatic signals that the United States is risking all-out full nuclear global war if they continue with this policy of conquest. And now, in response, we're seeing all of this propaganda start to show up in the United States of America about how, oh, the Russia's going back to the old Soviet Union. They're evil. They're commies. They short-sheet your bunk beds. They smell funny. And, starting this same propaganda campaign, why the United States has the right to go in and push for regime change inside Russia. I can't think of anything more stupid and dangerous.